당근이 싫어. 들리다 다시라 영업니다. Okay. We'll say the prayer on page number 10. Say each verse 2 times, all the way to page number 13. And afterward, we'll say English. I will let you the number, the English versions. In English, on page number 11, I take refuge in the Guru.
I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha.
From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. and by the merit created in this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and
May all sentient beings suffering. May all sentient beings suffering. All sentient beings free of suffering.
This ground
encircled by the four continents, surmounted by the sun. I visualize this good field and onward. May all sentient
야, 근데 정말로 잠을 자시길 시기요, 치라. 대단하다. 잘 와는 거 정말 배가 그렇지.
Good morning to you all, and thank you so much for joining me both here in the temple and as well as online.
다음 로마 돈이 같이 대릉이 로미 끝이 되죠. 어떻게 나 그 로미 곰자나 고마 때서 무튼 로미 끝이 뭐 요거 다네 뜻다 지고가로 뜻다네 뜻섬나가 봐. 샤르니 섬나가 로미 끝이 샤르요 다는 그리 오즈지 엄다리 소생 것도 돈이 랑진 탐질라 봐.
I would like to invite you all and join me in today's meditation on Aryan Tara. So the way I would like you to do is, first of all, and like you can see, I have displayed the Tanga and the image of Aryan Tara here, and which is right in front of you, both in the temple and online. So please take a close look on the sacred image of Aryan Tara, the mother of liberation, and then bring that very image the way you see with the great detail, and bring it into your inwardly, sort of invite it into your internal the world of spiritual understanding, meaning that to take this sacred image as the object of your meditation or meditative concentration, and then retain your attention on that very vivid sacred image which appears in the nature of reality and or the sphere of ultimate reality, which is internally appear in your mind. So then, yes, retain or remember that very image and without losing it. And meanwhile, while you are having this, keep that vivid image of Aryan Tara and then and while you are reciting the Aryan Tara's sacred formula, the mantra, and think of that from sacred body of Mother of Liberation, and emitting the lights, yes, the light reach out to all the sentient beings, including yourself.
어떻게 아니 개똥아서 다다 공리 돈 선반도지 랑 대화도 받아 등문도 받는지 상마 직바임 받 선바 초라 동 심지 탐지 동용 고명조 아니 랑다 직바임 받 삼당 디강라 아니 심지 탐지 대화 동다 랑 대화도 받는지 탐지 대화 동다나 랑 등은 동다와는 심지 탐지 등은 동다나 삼비 삼노 때 당네 아니 지도 신기라나 때니 다 학벌도 단다 나임 대응 그 정도 미성마 강을 터도 탐지 등을 리터와 동대와 동답을 소치 티셔츠 아니 뭐 거네 내가 탐지기 돈 좀 다른 다르스 봐야지.
So yes, that when you sort of feel and get a sense of that the lights, which are directly emitting from the separate body of Aryantara, which is on you and put on you, and as well as all sentient beings across the universe, entire world, and then so you are in a state of a great equanimity. So here, the great equanimity is the sense and that just like you yourself want to be happy, that's your own benefits, right? As well, and similarly, and all infinite others also wish to be happy, free from the suffering, cause of suffering, and that's the others' benefits. So your mind at this point is in the great state of absolute equanimity. And then from there, so then you began to think of or invoking the spiritual power or the blessings and of Aryantara, and so and think of that may all sentient beings basically is sincerely a prayer that may all sentient beings are free from the suffering by the power of this the sacred lights, which is the blessing or manifestation of the Aryantara herself and her power, and all sentient beings able to free from the sufferings in general, and particularly given the matter of fact that the pandemic is still lingering around in the world, and I think that all sentient beings, this very powerful sacred light, and so but by the moment of the touching, and then all sentient beings will be able to free from the suffering of the caused by a pandemic. And then in this state of realization or state of understanding, and then reciting the good mantras of Aryantara.
아주 상원냠도 지는 돈이 심지 탐지가 돈도 인 심지 나랑이 된다. 당시 탐지가 돈도 인 삼지네. 도미 그런도 맞지 봐. 지네 대응도 했어요.
So again, when we say that all other sentient beings, of course, this is including yourself as the meditator and the practitioner, and you yourself are included. So don't forget that you do this greater the spiritual practice is not only the benefits the others, but it benefits yourself as well.
Page number 74.
Dare de re so. Dare de re so. Ruo Chi Chang Ma Li Wo Di Sa La Ko Per Shu Sin Chin Na Ba Chi Yi Ba Nye Te Na Li Tar Dur Jin Ru Ye Ta Te Shong Wa Me Per Shu Ma Nam Te Tong Dan Ba Tong Sang Ma Di Ju Ru Per Do Kong Do Sen Bo La So Ji Sem Tong Dan Yer Chi 야, 다 같은 거 던던 마데스 롱고야 던던 상시 샘 기골 기값스네 롱친과 치는 말음 따오 삼 마키리 비실라 쇼 님부니 경 랑스 트로스 남징오 근징알라 자고세 더 롱레 롱지 돈데 데 아니 시송데 데라 아니 강바 땅보네 종위 디위 치는 뎀베트 토페 칠삼바 니와는 점바 디위 치남 데메트 토페 칠삼바 삼바는 숑크 랑니 데메트 토페 칠삼바 데남키 쇼금 쇼비 데남나 쇼금 시비 칠로 강바 타마는 쇼니 많이 비톤라 샹골 땅타니 조금 기고니 냠적도 경우 름바 인라 지투키 값스 경칠나 튼쯤 예미 기울샤 시 오니 돈데 데떡이 돈 돈데 상스 셈곰비 럼바 똑발라 차카와 쳔비 송 타치메바 바즈 아니 좀든디 기탄비 냥보 동바니 돈능이 뚱기 송르 실제말로 버톰버바 롱tam바 러드비 yapsiki jisindangne papa dawi shapki shangani damit ki ton tanlan bapanil yabe gomba shilche malu portawa chu chembo tanchi jettez tongni kangi toshina debjin shagpi longjin otatnit ki atwart sonda.
Okay, please go to your copy 109, page 109. We're going to read from the quotes, start with the quotations here. In the context of training in the ultimate awakening mind, the text says, consider all phenomena as like dreams. Examine the nature of unborn awareness. The remedy itself is released in its own place. Place the essence of the path on the nature of the basis of all. The first line indicates the method for determining the lack of a true existence of phenomena included amongst the objects that are apprehended by the mind. The second refers to the technique for establishing the lack of a true existence of the consciousness which apprehends things in such a way. And the third line indicates the means for comprehending the lack of a true existence, even of yourself, the investigator. These are modes of analytical meditation. The first line is of safeguarding equipoise through meditation. Free from laxity and excitement on the meaning of what is not found by analysis. In between meditation sessions, be like a conjurer. Just like as a conjurer feels no attachment for the illusion the meditator, after rising from meditation on emptiness, has no attachment to appearances. This will be taught later. These are no more, no less than the techniques for meditation, meditating on mind according to the words of the teacher Chakawa. The actual instruction on cultivating the ultimate awakening mind. Buddha, the transcendent subduer, prophesies that the protector Nagarjuna, his spiritual son Ayadeva, and their followers would establish the unmistaken, definitive, and interpretative meaning of emptiness as the essence of his teaching. Currently, Chantarakirti as the meaning of selflessness. The great Lord Atisha concurred that he had faultlessly presented the intention of the conquerors, saying, "Who has realized emptiness? He who was prophesied by the one thus gone." And so the true reality, Nagarjuna's disciple Chantarakirti, by following the instructions derived from him, you will realize
상지 이삼실 동니 거시고로다 낭바 상지위 지금 난가로 덴바 이시양 저 돈돈데마다 군조덴바제 단도데 다 돈돈데 비곤시 돈돈데 비곤라 상지 단데 돈돈데 비 상지 셈세데 샹오조다 렁경 오이 닐기 고니 마드바 랑진기 고니 마드바 아니 때는 종아 잠다 작토요 따뜻쇼기요르세.
So before I elaborate on the text, it is worth to point out the essence of this paragraph or the text we just read. Essentially, is talk about the Buddhist idea of the ultimate awakening mind, as we have heard it repeatedly in the past. So generally in Buddhism, we have the system of the teaching of the system which teaches the system of the notions of the two truths, the conventional truth and the ultimate truth. So within these two truths, and in this very moment, our topic is focused on the ultimate reality, or in other words, is the truth of the nature of a phenomena. And so the way we approach this, the ultimate reality or the truth of the ultimate nature of reality is that the phenomena by no means or the whatever you approach or you pursue you're pursuing, you analysis, you try to understand, and after all, that does not exist inherently or from its own side.
된사당 가서 파소 점바 이땅 종전이지 점비 이땅 점바부 시와니 니 기고네 아니 시람지 자가용 거 된사당 가서 빈다 다로즈 자가 다로즈 자가 다타용서 다타라 때네 아니 가서 다티 기 소소라 텀비 다지 자가인 셰기오나 소소로 또비 다고나서 샘텔라틴 암적 다티 녜지 때네 소와 대와경 응하는 생각건일라. 다트 문님 바지시 그저 득자시거나 다트 녀올소 다트 파송 담을소 암족 녀지 냠족 고송나 근데 서로와서나 맞겨 지금 거. 어때 자 근데 용사도 참아 이게 땅다 파쇼고 다트 강의 용어를 다트 아니 파쇼고나 랑좀 바지 요르 다트 요마 다트 파딱 롱땅 때 진 대병 다트 땅용소 아니 근데 다트 마 메송에나 다트 소소가 나시긴 된 거라 나교 나실라 나가 나라티 다트 좀에 나시메 총에나 다트 촌 롱쇼바 강 요마 텐서다 데니 텐템바치니 아니 다트 파쇼나 랑sem바치 요마를 겐치 텐디 따용을서 뜻서는 양ken가 암종들의 대랑sem바 코란치 타시도 랑진지 드바지 요마를 코테 겐치 창을서 다트 고요르데 데 마토고 카티나 여러메 고덴즈나 나 암조 큐쇼 카니 요마르테 나도 kalkala am jom ko chando ko tin dam reng da am kha che tang na ko te cha te ken ji thani ko chama chang na dat ko yo dat ko yo dat ti da yong te number na number shiwa se te zimbagi yijin de ge tini ani yijin number shiwa ti tang zo yijin number shi o dang nga te te de che de ta shawan ro shiong shawa ji yong te cha da ti shopa bo tin o dang ala de cha la gun de se ro ngala yakko to ba ji de se ro zimba nga te yang passion na tene zimba te passion sona nga te yang ni to kumare se ota te shegor.
So when we try to understand this this profound idea of phenomena, we approach is although it appears objectively, it seems that and by its and its own power, it arises from its own side. That's how it appears to us, right? That's how it seems the case. However, here, if we apply the Buddhist understanding of the ontological understanding of the phenomena or what it really existed or does exist or does not, and you will find that so your analysis, your study, and your research, your investigating of the something that ontologically or objectively exists and its own power, or operating and its own power, or exists arrived from its own side, actually is not the case. Your analysis actually will lead you to the point where you will draw the conclusion, right? Here you will see, oh, my mind essentially, or senses began to engage in relationship with anything. Then, so his mind has begun to apprehender, right? So who's the object which appeared to and then that very element of the person, right, and now becoming the apprehender, right? And then any phenomena that's apprehended, the object of apprehended, the object of the mode of apprehension, and here the object of the mode of apprehension. Give you example, like for example, like the sound, right, or words or sound. Here, so you hear the sound or any words, and it carries some kind of a meaning. For instance, like you hear somebody is press you, right, and express their appreciation, and So it says something is nice about you, and that very word, which essentially is a sound. So as soon as you hear the sound, that sound is become the object of the mode of apprehension, right? You are the apprehender, right? And then your mind here is the apprehending that very sound. What interesting and to think about it, from our spiritual practice point of view, is that when you hear the sound of words which it carries the meaning of some the positive meaning, such as like say, oh, you look great, and oh, you are fabulous, right? When you hear that words, and then you immediately, it's beautiful, it's nice, right? And then the grasping of the self is kicked in, or this relation between the sound is about something is pleasant, is positive, right? And it give you, and you experience the pleasantness of the sound, then that you immediately thought, oh, that's by me, oh, I am. So that motivates the. So now this sort of engagement or relationship between and the object of the mode of apprehension and the apprehender and the apprehended. They are now is motivated, hijacked by the grasping at the self of person. In other words, this mistaken self of a person. And so now from that point onwards, so anything followed by this instance or this experience of sound is a pleasantness of the sound is being motivated or be driven by the egoism or self-centeredness. So it's become me or mine, right? So that's how the grasping self is and began functioning and began affect you, and that's become something that's spiritually so troubling, and we have to address it. Similarly, for example, when you hear any sound or noise, right? You want to be quiet somewhere in the peaceful. However, you constantly hear this sound is just not doing you a favor. It's quite noisy and quite unpleasant. So then you immediately, this relationship between your mind, which is apprehending the object of the mode of apprehension, which is the unpleasantness of the sound, right? Or the sound, which is you can see which is your experience or your feeling, and determined, which is unpleasant, right? And then you will have this thought of rejection, and you said, "Oh, this hurts me, and I don't like it." So the rejection and the idea of the thought of rejection will arise, and then here you will see that sound is objectively they arise from its own side or its operating under its own power, right? Well, so then you will blame, right? And you will criticize, and you will try to do something and to remove it objectively, right? But you forgot, right? The critical, you missed the critical moment of an understanding about this very subtle and the profound relationship. That is, the sound you hear actually is depend upon involved, and it depend upon several other conditions. Okay, and so first of all, you have to have the sound, the ear organ, right? Your physical ear faculty, the organ has to be sound, right? Operating properly. and then the sense of the hearing has to be also sound and operating properly, right? And because none of them, if none of them are working, both of them are problematic, then you will not detect the sound and forget about the captured meaning or interpreted meaning of it, right? So, see, you hear the sound, although it seems to appear from its own, right, on side and operating independently, but in fact it's not, right? And you as person apprehender, right, or investigator, or the one who rejecting or appreciating the word or the sound, essentially, it's heavily dependent upon the ear organ, physical organ, and as well as the hearing faculty or the sense of the hearing. So then you're looking, in fact, because of all these things, and the way I pursuing or the way and I perceive and my experience of this very knowledge of phenomena, in this case, the sound arise from its side, operating under its own power, and exists independently, inherently. In fact, it's not, right? Because so you are essential that at the first place, right? Your experience of the sound is arrived, right? Derived from its own. But it is kind of merely dependent on nothing, just operating and by itself, which is not, right? At this point, it is, if the sound, right, and either is negative or positive, is operating either from its own side and exists independently, inherently, then it doesn't matter, whether your ear organ or your sense of the hearing is sound or not. It should be always, forever, right? The sound should be always. There's a pleasant, the sound of which is positive or negative should be always there. But we know that is not the case, right? And so therefore, we have to bring the very sort of critical and very important knowledge about the how our sense of who we are and upon to hear somebody's comments, right, positive or negative, in fact is thing. So because it depends on rising, therefore it's not the merely or independently existed and as how it appears to us at the first place. So this way we will know that anything happened to us, right? Either it's pleasant, unpleasant, it's dependent upon all kinds of conditions, evolved conditions and the causes. So this way, if somebody is blaming on us, and we will not, entirely or immediately feel that's awful, that's bad, it's somebody else and the evil acts, right? But rather, we will put it into the context and see it as a realist, approach it realistically. And by contrast, if somebody press us and say very nice things about us, we also know that as it's heavily involved with the context, and also is dependent upon the causes and conditions and all other factors. So this way, if you look in and this way and understand how this being formed and become some kind of phenomena, and then you approach yourself like the sense of I, me. So and then you looking, that's how does I, the sense of I or the me or I, and existed. What is the true mode of that I or me is? When you're looking and try to investigating and try to find out, and you will see, and actually that very I or the identity, your personal or individual identity, is something that does not exist the way it appears to your mind at the first place.
대인차당 알아서 cir당 초라노 뭐지 초라노 뭐지 초라노 뭐지 남아는 소네 완전 치마치 켜버려. 근데 민냠대 되거나 민이라때 지라 같이 시고는 미치도 초라노 뭐지 완전 시점 매워지지 미치도 완전 시점 보여나 완전 시점 보텔라 손조치 미치 득자스가 람성 코트 초라노 보티 완전 시점 보티 거 nga 득자스 가르치는 거 임전 루페 롱롱네 람성 가려운 거 시라프레 르노데 미 스타트 좀 안좀 치면 맹기들라 교득 자르다즈네 셰근득자즈나 바다데 득자르즈나 코켜버리오 마르트 코테리 인기르즈네 코테리 중고 때자다 미치그 손에 미니라 딱시 땅에나 초라 nom부 정거 때라 때지 안지시키 모인 때라 초 미트 득자르때가 즈나 랍서 미트 가르치네 때라 가르치고 코롱 탑시로 좀 컨트롤하는 거 때 초라 등을 찍는 등을 띄는 컨트롤하는 것도 파쇼라 치는 마라당다 람상텔렌 올 샤시당 초라 때좀 안진 점 맹크 미텔라 교미기 득자르 세근드가드나 다 득자르 세고는 찍지나 득자 인스파레 찍지나 득자 문스파레 득자 맨나코 득자르 지나가라 남나 정노고 말은가 득자 있나 득자레 더 동오이니 세정 등이 심직직인 세를 가졌대 온 거. 때자다 아니 사자 락신나나 아니 topic government ja chama pe maga magirwi tontang tambi tamarwa jiktin da te khiware zini ko sosugo takshil changni chik dikcha shagudina hachang magawa mewache topar chiguna sho gawa mewache sosugo shoba otri shegde debar ngonde topar chiguna kashi zama bellachni khorong tonok deba chik tendik shegor kashi mapa chiguna khorong jimtsin chigchangni khorongla 만템비 쇼지 용걸 소송은 노트 정걸 때 노트 때나 요성치 타바지 또 받지야 또방 모임에나 그때 응엘레마 아주 소속을 파쇼티게 내땅 가르나 시타왔던데 나타 돈동담 키와레 시골 어떤지 지타와는 알아도 저버리 요다이나 알아도 깔하고도 왔다 미소 소속 삼칠다 네네 때 안진티 토만 번 고민다 왜자
Okay, here let me put it in a more closely in the context that they try to make a sense in the more sense with our day-to-day life, or in other words, bring this point and see how it relates to us, how it's very relevant in our day-to-day life experiences. So first of all, culturally, we are familiar, right? We're familiar that the concepts or the conversations in the of sensitive, right? We always say, time sensitive, but that issue is a very sensitive issue, a sensitive information, right? And or that person is very sensitive. So we use sensitivity or sensitive and all the time. And so in other words, we have quite a good understanding culturally. Something that's is important. So we named after that very experience of our day-to-day life is through the notional idea, the words of sensitive or sensitivity, or be sensitive. Okay. So now let's take this to how we can make a relationship or make a sense based on the conversation we just had. In other words, make it as something that's spiritually relevant, right? So we are sensitive, or we become somebody call us sensitive, or we call somebody else is sensitive, right? We have this sharp
11 o'clock.
sense, the sharp sense of ourselves, right? And then we have to investigate. So how does the sense sensitivity, or we become sensitivity, or we become very sort of evolved by being a very sensitive, right? So being a sensitive is not always means is a good thing. In fact, being a sensitive from the negative point of view, which basically is very, very harmful, right? Because that's very sensitive, or being sensitive. So I am, you feeling easily got hurt, right? And so you sort of indulgent and or give yourself to the senses, right? Feelings, and without any sort of precaution or without any observation, just like the sense how you feel and then responded to the person or anything events according to your feelings. And that's how we call somebody is sensitive, or he or she is sensitive in the case of the human experience, right? So let's say the sensitive itself, how operating affect us. Here we imagine, right? Let's imagine we have two individuals. One individual, right, is less sensitive, and the others are very super sensitive. Okay? So you can see this the same event, okay, in the face of the same event, and a less sensitive person and a super sensitive person, their response to the same event, right, is totally different, right? The understanding of that event also very there's totally different. Sense that same person and from same kind of life background or whatever the classifications or ritual background, whatever the of affiliation, any form of affiliation. So if someone made a comment, right, about you, that's the two individual A and individual B. So they are sort of in the from the same similar background or share the same the opinion, right, or considered from the same racial and community. If person C made a comment about it and whatever they related to them, the person A, suppose, is the less sensitive one, and up until here, the person sees comments about him or her, and she would respond to it and as if she observed something or she understood something. She is hearing, noticing something's going on, and then she stops there, right? And then no negative follow-ups. But the person B, unfortunately, upon here, the person sees comments he or she just heard, then immediately become mad or take that comments very offensive, right? Become very agitated and respond to that person sees the comments very negatively. So why? Now you have to ask the question, why the same comments, same events, right? The two individual A and B, who are dealing with the same situation and the same scenario, right? How come the outcome are very different, right? So the Buddhist understanding of these differences is the reason person A less responded no negatively or less negatively is because of her grasping of self is less forceful, right? The person B, unfortunately, she or he, the way he responded or she responded so strongly and took it so offensive, get so mad, is because his or her grasping of self is way too strong or too big. So the difference being made because of the individual's understanding about the importance of themselves, but their sense, their central and the egocentricness. how important they are. And so because that person and the way the individual A and B look at themselves, right, and the importance of themselves is one is less, one is strong, one is less forceful, one is very forceful, so therefore the difference is being made, right? So now let's say this is right. Now we know the answer, we know the cases, right? We know the phenomena, and then we know the outcome, right? But here, so how we deal with it, right? So you got to be aware of, right? But even you can be sensitive, right? However, that very awareness of the sensitive, being sensitive, and should not being hijacked or being given and empowered and by the grasping of self-centeredness. Yeah. Because if you be sensitive, right, then you give the power to the egocentric, self-centeredness, or misperception of self of person, then you will definitely become agitated. You will become very sort of mad and angry, right? That prior to the angry, because of your sensitive, being a very sensitive, and or your sensitivity is driven by, right, controlled by the self-centeredness. So therefore, upon hear the negative comments, and you will experience the suffering, or something is painful, something is it's unpleasant. As soon as you experience that unpleasantness, and you will naturally try to get rid of it. You will try to free from that sense of pain or sense of unpleasantness. So then you are responded to, and that very events in terms of how to free yourself will be very destructive, right? So that's we must to avoid, right? Because this is not the right way to approach it, and or being sensitive. So the way the Buddhist suggests, the Buddhist literature suggests that we being sensitive, be aware of, and deal with the things and events is this. So we must be aware of and be noticing and be sensitive about anything and everything and all the time. However, so when you hear, particularly something is against you, a sort of attack on you, right? And you sense this, right? You sense that, you notice that, and you observing the things, events happening. And in that moment, instead of let the egocentric I hijacking, right, and responded to and sort of instantly, you must pause and then take one step back and look back to the events, the things and the events, and or your senses, how you sense this, right? How you detect it, and then to observing that, right? Look at it. So what's really going on, right? And then so if it is so negative, you also immediately put into context the way it's kind of makes you feel negative is because you involved with causes, conditions, right, and the factors, and many other things are involved, right? It's not merely the objectively just the things that arrive that way, right? And similarly, when somebody is oppressed you, give you a good credit and a higher, regard you very highly, and give you a credit for something that's way beyond, and you deserve it, you also must, upon to hear this very positive and overly sort of credited comments, and you must also step back and pause and look at that very comments being made by others, and then reflect upon and see whether that's the case, right? Is it true? And so this reminds me about the wise saying and or adverb of the Sakya Sakya Pantita, Punga Jensen. And what he says that so as a speaker, you must make the comments according to the facts. Right? If you, as a listener, and if you hear that whatever the comments or the recognitions or ideas, which is not meet the reflect the actual reality, so and then you must not take it seriously. So in any case, you have to be in and live with the reality, the truth, but not the exaggerations or denial. Right? So speaking about exaggeration, we know that in generally people are not sincerely, or some are just by habits. They may come into you and say, "Oh, you look so pretty, and you are fantastic," or you are just someone else. They will press you and overly states you who you are, and it sort of kind of pop you up, and it give you the wrong impression, so who you are. There are people who maybe it's unconsciously or intentionally they would do that, but in this kind of cases, we must know that the person is, what he or she says, maybe just kind of a simple expression, say, and oh, I like you, or I acknowledge you, and you are someone's good, but not go with what he or she say, and as an exaggeration, and you are the one that. And what is really who you, whether the person says about you is it true or not, right? So anyway, I haven't said all this, but in real life, right? I know this is very difficult to do what we are saying here or what I am suggesting, because as ordinary people, a person, we know it's very difficult to do. Not responded to the negative comments, as especially the things that which we didn't do at all, or we didn't deserve it. So if people attack us, we know it's hard to put in the context and then see all the things how it's being formed independently and depend on causes, conditions, and many other factors. It's difficult. And similarly, upon to hear somebody say you are pretty, and you're gorgeous, and so on and so forth. We also, it's very difficult for us to calm down, and take it as read it or contact and understand it from the contextual, through the contextualization.
되게 측디 도노로 가르치구나. 적당한데 이기공을 파 쇼파치네 이기강네 많이 봐요. 강화 때문에 일 요매 때 가르 이진기군이 시고는 거 샘건 오 코르데레 데르시에디 샘부시기 누가 다 주고도 샘 이진세 때 과니 용어를 저다 등이 샘이 하고 송시고 근데 나세 때 과도 이제 당시 당수는 나때 다 정말 땐때 맞음도 좀 오인일 늘 들다 데스 당시 당수는 예트고 말했어. 많이 봐나 많이 봤다랑 동배영 지처럼 동배영 때 냠버정니 데스 곰 곰자원도 곰전에 때라 안에 지금 이 제나다 안에 스테이지도 냠버정스 안에 때니 냠정때니 야 랑용수 안에 단일로 사이를 니 세원선 직든 탐제 나와 난거다 나와 탐제 오 코로나랑진 지트 봤더니 빠지도 요 말에 말람 나진진 치탐제 말람 나진 삼당 어떤지 삼당다 곰 작당도 된지 곰바이나 안에 랑진 게 치탐제 내리 곰마데 된지 레다 오레스 어떤 시고다 But Shabata Digan and only there are kid Kaja Mare, and Sanji long tongue song on Tambat and Wumble, but then the water palace soap and it repeat shit on the Chapa tart and Chuchi at second song is that put it third don't root together.
Okay, so in brief, let me point out the essential point of all this conversation, the paragraph, the text we just read, and essentially is saying, and what is saying that so we have to know how we experiencing ourselves, right? And how we what is the appropriate way to respond to our experiences of our very existence, our the senses of who we are, whatsoever is going on, right? The way to deal with it, the appropriate way to deal with our senses of the things, the events, and who we are, and it has to be began by analysis or investigating and how that thing, or event, or person, or the does exist. We must start challenging the objects which appears, right, and objectively give us a sense of the meaning, a sense of some kind of negative qualities. So we must challenge that very object appear externally or internally. So, and then reflect upon and see whether really what's going on, whether that's the case, the things or phenomena, and whether they truly exist the way how it appears to us. That's the practice. Okay? So we call ourselves a sentient being. Okay? Sentient here means sentient. And because we have mind, and that mind sense and the feelings, right? From the sense, that feeling, right? And then we have this, we get this me. But this I and me, the sense, the object from which you got the feeling, you got the sense, are actually is a dependent arising. Like the dependent and dependent term, right? So it's not the merely independently, and there is through the relationship of a dependent and a dependent term, the interactions between and taking place between these two, right? So yes, so we have this sense, and then we have this we got a feeling, and then we got a sense of I, and so our examination has to be the very critically analysis of the we have to conduct engaging in a serious process of inquiry, and to see how that I is being formed, how that I is derived, what is the true nature of that I, the very I of person that so, and you have to do this in the sphere of we call some kind of vacuum, right? A vacancy or vacuum is empty, okay? Or the sphere of reality. So our investigation of our true nature of ourself should lead us to this very point of the sphere of reality or the emptiness. So when you reach your inquiry, your critical analysis, and so led you to this point of a sphere of reality, the emptiness, the Dhammadhatu, and then you must your entire and stay with that very awareness or understanding of the I, which is devoid of self-existence. Right? So the I, which is empty of a lack of inherent existence. That is the sphere of reality. That is the emptiness. So then you need to meditate on that state of clear realization, right? And single-pointedly, right? Single-pointedly is the fully focused mind. Right? And so this is the state of this is in the case of you are on the equipoise of meditation, right? So absorption. So after you after the done with the meditation of meditative absorption or the equipoise of meditative equipoise, then you arrive, right? You arrive from the that realization, and now you are in this meditative equipoise. You arrive from the meditative equipoise. Okay, you are at the moment of the post-meditative equipoise. So what you got to do? Now you are no longer in that state of direct realization of the sphere of reality or the nature of reality single-pointedly, right? Now you arrive from that state, and now your senses are the physical organs are operating, and the senses have began the functioning. So at that point, this is the point of the point of the meditative equipoise. What you need to do is that you need to reflect upon and bring up and keep yourself up to that state of awareness, and then look at it and reflect upon and think of all the things, events, including how you see yourself, including what you see, what you hear, and experiencing. All of them are nothing more or less like a dream. So you must look from like the way how you treat regarding the dream which you had in a previous night. So this is of course we are not talking about the Buddhist understanding about how to meditate and how to understand the ultimate awakening mind or the emptiness, right? And the author here and saying that all he said, the comments he made, and it's not his own word. He did not make up this. All these are come from originally come from the Buddha, the Shakyamuni himself, and then passing down all the way to the great Mahayana and master Nagarjuna, the second century the philosopher and great master of Mahayana Buddhist Nagarjuna, and then he passed down. Nagarjuna passed down this very realization, this practice, teaching, and all the way to his disciple Ayadeva, that's the 3rd century figure, and then all the way passed down to the Chandrakirti, So the disciple and then the distant disciple of Aryadeva, and then the 7th century figure, then all the way then passed down to the great master Digambara and the Adisha, right? And the Adisha, the 10th century figure, and so the author here is introduce the lineage of this teaching, how it's been transmitted.
어들 딱히 땅안에 섬동나 아주 미 간다 니트부고도 니트부고나 미 추서 특거나 니트부고 송나 지가요 말 티카테 미텔라 소라용 안즈니 관계요 말 티카테 간다 소란도 간다 대신도 간다 약하지 때 삼로지 땅다 아니 가도 이 쿠이도 말름 땅고 말름 땅을 좀 알아도 되지 정말 그 통화요 다티요 소라디도 뭔가 연결을 때니 사비스는 지가요 말때 참아 삼로 요거 땅고 아주 정말 니 그거를 니 그거 때 간다지 니 그리 간다지 소라한테 아주 제 대시 잡는 때 잡고 되지 어때 그래 저한테 이제 때랑 티소테서 당난 그 아주 전에 니와 뛰어 말
Oh yeah. So today we don't have the afternoon class, so therefore we have a little time. I would like to encourage you to stay with me and a little bit longer, and then do some kind of a homework with me. Okay, based upon the conversation we had, we did, and we had this morning. We had it before. So let's think about this word. Because here the text, the author suggests us at the post-meditative equipoise, we must look at, think of, and consider a view, right? Treat all our living experiences, the phenomena, the events, ourselves, our identity as a dream or dream life. Okay, so now here's my question for you, or the homework I would like you to do. So we all have this sleeping experience, right? We fell asleep, and we are asleep. We fell asleep, and we are sleeping, and sometimes we fell very deep. We fell into deep sleep. In that state of very deep sleep, we actually our mere state of being is the state of dreamlessness. Okay? A dream-free, the state of dream-free. And think of this. In that state of dream-free, who you are, what is going on, right? And how you feel. You have no feeling, but you does exist. You survived, right? You are there. However, there's no feeling, there's no you, there's nothing going on. But you are, as person, individual, right? Has to be, you have to admit that it is existed, but here you have nothing, right? You got nothing, but the deep, dream-free sleep. Okay, think about this very strange and weird yet profound our part of our living experience, right? Our life experience. Now, move to the next phase of the semi-events, the sleeping. Okay, now you are still sleeping, but here you are experiencing a dream. You are dealing with all kinds of things which is going on, right, and taking place. The where you are, and so you feel the things, and you see the forms, meaning that the things and the objects, right, and even the tangible objects, all kinds of things are going on. So you feel and you senses, right? So either way, and how is dream just going, but it's just like the real in terms of your senses, because that's affect you, right? And your feeling is, it invokes your feeling and make you going through that process of the dream until the end, right? You've got all these experiences of something happened to you and you had to deal with it, right? Or you went through that process. Now, this is my second sort of homework question for you. Think about it. Now, after you wake, right? How come that in the state of a dream, right? Even though you know from after the post dream, the experience of a dream, you know that it was a dream. It didn't happen, right? There was no form, and there is no such thing that like a color shape that you saw and you had to deal with, or any tangible object you did. But while you were dreaming, they were real. They indeed happened, right? So think about it. What's really going on? Is that dream experience it totally merely delusional, or is it something and it carries some kind of the important sort of the knowledge, and or is it conveys some kind of a message? Is saying something, or is saying nothing, but it merely illusional, right? And then think about it. And I wanted to ask you, and
Ni tupu nil tren desh jatun yo nil tupu ko.
Oh, yeah. So I'm wondering, I'm just curious among the audience, both online and also in the temple, can anyone explain accurately explain what is a dream or dream experience?
Nil ko banda nil korang. Nil tupu ku ni ko ni telen desh kan ja. Ta malam ta ko korang malam ni nyong de na sama chora de ngoro malam de sa chi. Ta ni malam ni ma nyong da ko de chora yo ma te na. Tani ni man yu inja ba ka ma de. Ta nil ta nga sama ni ku ora. Ni tupu ku ni cha tan ji me chi nga tik de la. Ji tong tong ji ni sa ma do ha mo ko jo. Te kha te desh kan ja ka si.
Yeah. Let me rephrase the question. And actually, not the general dream. I'm talking about the general sleep, the state of sleep as sleeping. Most precisely, and I'm asking you that does anyone, anyone here and among the audience can explain to me your understanding of the dreamless sleep? Okay, sleep. We're still focused on the sleep. So can you explain what's happened? What is nature? What is the dream-free sleep? Because we do sleep, right? And there are people who has no dream. Of course, there's no dream. But there are people who can sleep 6 to 7 hours without any dream at all. Can that individual or anyone can explain? You slept for 6 or 7 hours. You have no any dream, and can you explain that state of a dream-free?
Desh jam na depende. Draw yo na draw.
Yeah, you can. If you have a question, please ask, or if you like to explain in a comment about the dream-free or dreamless. No dream states of your existence, that's also fine.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know the answer for that. I haven't prepared about that part of the lecture. But thank you very much. It was a wonderful teaching. I enjoyed it very much. And my question probably connects to a previous part of the teaching today, what we heard. And it's basically about ignorance. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to the definition of ignorance. I always thought, I'm not very educated probably, but ignorance means that refers to people who are not familiar with the concept of loving kindness. But after today's teaching, my impression is ignorance is more like the state if we are not have the correct view of the self. Can we say that? Is that correct? Or can I hear the correct definition of ignorance in Buddhism?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, ringati maybe mila maybe nita and this is to Mendoza. This is two mes. Ina ni gislagi that the chuchu de vega so ni chuchu to genas. Nanga doa you are the 이 가장 드리는 것도 있고 이제 송도 왔을 때 말을 봤을 때 단연실에서 아니 말을 봤을 건데 다 당한 편집들이 봐도 이 가르쳐 거는 보츠보다 이 말을 봤을 때 정말지 고마치 봐라고 지금 대단타서로 다 지금 봐서로 내가 지금 말을 봤지 그 추정을 쓰면 남출은 제일 말을 봤지 왜냐 근데 인지 매가가 아니 지금 샴바다 인지가 소화되죠. 아니 디지털의 마시나 말을 받아 보여라고 지금 생각보다. 얘는 이 기시라고 소다한테나 말을 봤어야지. 간저 수술하니 간데지나 이문 응명을 가려는 팀 고마츠니 데데 데리시나 말을 받고 봐라. 팀에 과데 월 노조 조조하면서.
말을 결정다 말이 빠지는 미시와 참 말이 바로와. 먹고만 통한테 말이 바로와. 마리파 몽부 요때나 나라도 단다데 지 나상지 점네 텐리야나 진영 토만 마리파 세체 때단다 결혼 거 좋았던 요때데 소소랑니 닐링고마데 하마고 요거 아니 지 때라 착신 차등기 딜링한 거 아니 다 소라나면 짠짠네 디디 소라 용용 때 개발된다 때 텐리야나 진영은 로 상식을 어디 토만 마리파 세티 마리파데 rang nili ngoma te masyater so rang ni kandaji ba nili masyater chita mari pasete masyo yon zola kogores mukam thona mari parte tenta tendi yala chini nang mari pasete ti chantun de la mume kyoji namgul lakten kin ji jayo tepko rondu do chiyo mar te janga do semki nili ngorang ngana do semki nili ngorang zo nili ngoma te masyo ngete ni ngana do dak sine te 고지 점네 고랑 첨바스 점 대한 것들이 될라 착신기 착성기는 대한 거 아니 착비쇼 될라 소소 가세 쇼 될라다 녀랑 착동지는 녀랑 착동인데 자위다 용는 거서도 니위 쇼치라 마가위 쇼치니지 될라 다다 녀게 캬퍼치 되기지네 아니 림비 될라 된 레사리가 다 개발된 남시대 산조를 되게다 용거스 된리야라 진정나 하고 있어
Okay. Well, regarding the ignorance, we can approach this idea of Buddhist understanding of ignorance from kind of a general way and a more specific and in the kind of broadly and narrowly. Okay? Broadly speaking, ignorance can refer to anything that you don't know, you have no idea, or you be misinformed, or you misinterpreted, right? For example, in the things you didn't see or you can't see, which is a kind of broadly speaking, is a form of ignorance, right? But the ignorance in Buddhism, here we are talking as a spiritual, the matters of a spiritual and a practice, which is literally, and now here we talk about the ignorance from narrow, from the very narrow sense point of view, and narrowly speaking, the ignorance is has to be explained through the teachings of 12 links of interdependent origination. Right? We know that maybe you have heard that the Buddhist teachings of the system of 12 links of interdependent origination involve the 12 stages or steps of phases of phases that concerning the how the life we formed and how we come up we end up with and so on and so forth. So the very first the content of 12 links of interdependent origination is ignorance. Ignorance is the one, just like we talked about, you understand it, the second part was right. So ignorance here is the misinterpretation and it failed to understand a lack of understanding and particularly misperception in concerning the status or the nature or the identities of individuality. That mistaking a misperception of self of person is the ignorance. It's the first contents of the 12 links of interdependent origination. And in other words, because of this misperception of the self of person, and then you kind of have this the impulsiveness or the the volition is kicked in, and then started from there. So the name and the forms, and then they ended the encounters and taking. So when the relationship you have this feelings, right? Feelings, and then you attach, generate the attachment to that feeling, or according to the way how you feel, and then you accumulate the karma, and then karma is and then the operating and become functional, and then the so it's put in the motion of the aging. And then through from the aging, then derive the death. So so that how the kind of life is being forming, and went through it's a full kind of a circle or the process. And in fact, if you look at the illustrations of the 12 links of interdependent origination, and is a paint depicted on the tanga or the walls in the monastery, or you will see that the first the image that's represented the ignorance is a man, a blended man who hold on to, who is walking. It looks like a walking, but hold on to, and his has a can or stick on his hands. So that represents the ignorance. Yes, the truth is that because we fail to understand our true nature and the true status and reality of our individuality, and then when we feel and the things about ourselves, and then we began to being hijacked, if you like, by the attachment, the aversion. So, and then we said that the four immeasurable thoughts, right? May all sentient beings free from the attachment and aversion. So you see here the problems. It reflects and reveals the problems we deal with. We have to deal with, or we are dealing. So we are constantly because of our misinterpretation or misunderstanding, misperception of ourself, of our individuality, and then we constantly being sort of pushing and pulling in between the clinging and or attachment to our misperception, or rejecting to the things and events. So is try to hold on to and reject to and something, and is the reason why we accumulate lots of karma, and whereby we be affected by our own karma that we created or we accumulated.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
So I thought that I would give an attempt to the dreamless state question. And so I think that one way of understanding this, which might not be sufficient, would be a scientific understanding. And so there is science. It's from a third person perspective, though, that looks at the way in which deep sleep can relate to certain brain patterns, deep REM sleep, and there's certainly have kind of, my understanding is that there's kind of two. While that's not a first-person experience, it's very difficult to talk about your own experiences in a dreamless state because we're dreamless. It's hard to access that, but we can kind of talk about it from I think, a third-person scientific perspective, or there's similarities in the sense that the science suggests that the dreamless state is very important for our own health and our own well-being. And if we don't have these deep periods of sleep during the night, over time, we might be imbalanced mentally and also physically. I can also probably speak about my own first-person experience of when I do have deep sleep to feel more fresh the day. And I think for many people, the dreamless sleep is very important functionally because it might be the one moment where their mind is really at rest. That might be the moment for them. That might be one of the few moments during their day when their mind is really at rest and allows them some relief.
등이 멍청 고소 그거. 근데 시대 고소 되나 그 좋아만 봐. 되나 땅이 좋아티 버티 바로 니 특부 군이 저쪽을 니 특부 쿠이다나. 저쪽 니 특부 쿠디 니급나 아니 강성 때 나세때 잔득박에 작가를 잡고 말세. 나세때 디 바로 매 총래 가르쳐서. 이제 참.
뭔가 되게 지나요. 그 자료바세 기로 말에 자료바게 딱 이야기가 되는 니스바모 초가 많이 봐 니스바모 미스바모가 아니 레벨게 로단 데게 토네 니 쿠바메 되다니 그것이 유지네 되게 되게 되어요. 그래서 다들 책 좋아하는 소마
니 따다세 니쿠
많이 봐지 아니 미스바모가 미스바모가 라바데게가 니 쿠베네가 많이 쿠베네가 니라 요베가 레벨게 제리 주동로다다 니 춘니 니랑 자니 매비 니가 그 레벨게 로다죠 레벨게 내다니 어디 통해다 니시디아죠 그래서 되니 아주 잡아줄 테니까 그 third person 시대자마 nga mai cho mai da mi simba mo de phong simba de ga so phong simba ge lebe ge ye ko le ba de me la me de ke de la bi shi ya
nga to cho mai be ne 강석 samaz 강내 적거네
da mi simba de ba
되나 이 카드스 요런 게 뜻에 거다 니 특부 그 띠그 니급드나 아니 nga se ji yoro da de 그 차송을 가와서 뜻을 좋아
뭔가 지금 먼저 여기 주고 하지 when a two laba two meeting laba yore my meeting sorry I have to explain the issue that is a scientific or third person idea we have trouble to I have trouble to let it properly convey or translate what the Victor's question comments is about third person. 이제는 좀 미치지 레벨에 되어요. 네, 저희 국민에게 지금 라바 내단시다. 님 춘이 아니 많이 국민에게 내는 요비 레벨에 내단시다. 아니 메라산이 레벨에 내단 이잖아요. 네, 맞아요. 근데 미스ум바셔도 미스ум바데 장량도 장마도 님이 계시고 말이에요. 네데 네마도 장이 계시고 말이에요. 얘는 많이 이게 미스ум바데 그 지체 올라 Labadi or the Milan don't become a relation to us. Milan Mato become a relation to us. This one is
뜻다 공스바 잠바즈기 셰고라 당이 뜻당이 콜란다는 큐 동발라더니 큐 동바들 셰드 시작하고 키 결혼 동바 통트고 시작하면 도와 어디지 뜻지 바르다 그 가서 스마고 가서 젠지 니와 가서 니와디 하고 오라 이 그다 야 강서 니 특보쿠이 강서 띠 니크고 수트라 니쿠다 띠 카트텔라 강서 띠nga 세지 점바지고라 nga 세지 요라 남빙가로 쓰는가 세트 nga 세트 띠 바로 때야 다 예송레 간듯어 nga 세트 니크나 바 팀송레 nga 세트 알아서 땅 남지 semnanga ngazi yisigido ngase di khatde kangan jokre ngit chiboda.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that I failed to translate the third person idea correctly. So here's a question. Okay. So we do have the person. Let's say we don't need a third person because just like you can see your face, you have no idea how your face is look like, right? You have to depend on the second person, like me. I have to let me explain to you, right? And similarly, I have to depend on you and explain my face because I can see. And so therefore, the third person is not seems not required and not needed in this case. My question is here. So while you are sleeping for 6 hours, during that 6 hours of sleep, right? So at one point you got into the dreamless state, dreamless, and in that dreamless state, here you have no sense of who you are at all, right? Because you don't feel there's nothing going on, right? And my question to you is, what happened to that I, that person's I? That person's I is kind of synced into its mind, or got lost, or kind of cut off. And what happened to that very sense of me or I, and during that the period of dreamless? That's my question.
Oh, I have an answer.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
like to say. It's a great void, and you have no ego. You're like, there's no I. It's gone. The ego.
Ngani quiz na ngani kungete ga yorne.
It's empty.
Okay, if that's the case, then so you still say, while I was sleeping and while I was in the state of dreamless, right? But then where is that I then? Because you have to claim, right? You have to acknowledge, and I have that dreamless state. But in that state, there's no I. What happened?
Not there.
맨날 ngani sig 말았어.
There, but it's not available to your consciousness.
It's there.
So if that person is sort of gone and right vanished, then you cannot just wake up or right move to the back to the dream state of dream, right? That suggests that there was I.
Ja, dat is okay. But think ja, dat moet doen.
Maybe
Ja,
this much today.
dat is het maybe.
It's a great puzzle.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you, Tempa and Tenzin. If you would like to make a donation for this teaching, it would be greatly appreciated by the monks in the monastery. And you can do that by calling 812-336-6807 or by emailing the center, tmbcc.kcl@gmail.com. For those here in the temple, I will pass around the begging bowl and you can make a donation. And if you cannot do that, please you may say a prayer or a mantra into the bowl. And as Geshe-la said earlier, there will be no second teaching today. All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll say the closing prayer on page number 80. 80. Onboard.
Jambeyang Zewe Jesong Tamberen Bakun Sandang Jecho Yene Dobe Gyanan Jecho Ye Jen Tobe Lang Je Shoda Zewe Gyanan Dove Ye Je Mumba Se Je Yahweh Tenpa Yuran Zenjur Tenpa Renjen Chope Macha Cha Janyam Barjurwe Choden Nyanje Chenpo Ye Rajopa Ende Sala Chen Ranje Yahweh Mejon Tenle Yado Janjo Long Jirambeja Pardonanje Yelagade Yahweh Neba Yondo Jungjer Lamzan Kaden Jimbo Gonen Juzon de Guzon Doje Modo Jando Zo Janjo Zemjo Rembo Je Bana Je Jura Je Jewa Nyamba Member Yang Oni Kondo Pewer Show Hare Rave Gore Shengande Pendande Chowene Cheres Penze Gazo Ye Sambe Sende Pardo Tenjurji Jambo Pawo Jedara Chembo Kondo Sambo Deyan Dejende Teda Kunje Jezo Dalo Je Yewa Teda Tamje Ramdungu Tezon Yawa Tamje Ye Mowa Ganga Chodo Ngaba
It's 12 o'clock.
Majin Give Zawa De Gonjan Zambo Chuje Ramdungu je pende jone dambo Tenzen jewo damje gogan zan le jen gon la de je jongwe sanje tenpa dado je juro je tsera gondo jawa zonga tejo jenye ngozo zabe jawe ngabe lamzan Keje zanyan doba majurji. So